Oh, for me it's just an overarching feeling of gratitude, you know. We're all alone. We're all alone most of the time, and he provided a forum in which we could no longer be alone. We could all come together, and that nurtured us and healed us immeasurably and enabled us to go off into the world, back to our world, and be alone, but kind of more so. It was invaluable, and we really miss it.
And we were all in the hot tub, and because of Don's tendency, he did it. If anyone could come to his parties, and this was before the time when Don had the 10 o'clock rule, and no one could come after 10 o'clock. So people would come, some quite strange people from nightclubs and things, and this was one of those nights when a strange person came. And he was a man, and he was in the hot tub with all of us, but he couldn't really cope with the fact that no one had any clothes on. Even though it was dark and we were all just chatting, he couldn't really cope with us. And for some reason, everybody suddenly got out of the tub, except me and this man. And he started to behave in a way which I found made me very nervous. So I got out of the tub and I went to find Don, and I said, Don, there's a man in the hot tub who isn't really safe to be there. I won't tell you exactly what I said because it's too rude. And Don said, oh really? Right. And he turned round and marched towards the hot tub and fell into the pond.
I have another funny story about the pond. Put it up a little bit. Okay. For my 14th birthday party, I had a nice big sleepover in the Red Room, full of there's about 10 of us girls, all my friends from school, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. Don and my mum had both come downstairs several times to politely ask us to be quiet, in so many words, but it got light outside and we were like, oh, let's just run around the garden. So we dared my friend Zoe to we dared her to run up to the pond and back as many times as she could. And we were bored. She didn't just run into the pond, she ran straight through the pond, out the other side, did exactly the same, back out. And she ran back down the bottom of the garden, and Don came downstairs, and he looked a bit confused, and we all looked at her, and from about the waist down was a brown from the sludge. And it was just, she was in white, all white. So he said, right, you smell a little bit, to be honest. You might want to go upstairs and have a bath. So she did, which is quite funny. My second story about the pond is when Don used to take me frogging. Because in the springtime, or summertime, there were lots and lots and lots of frogs in his pond, and I used to like catching them, and that's about it, really. But he taught me the best way to catch a frog is to reach in and grab it. But the first time he did this, he reached in, was rummaging around a bit, but instead the frog grabbed him. Scared him so much, he leaped over the top half of his body, including half of his head, ended up into the pond. As he retrieved his arm, there were 2 frogs just grabbing on for dear life. So yes, I would agree, probably the best way to catch a frog.
Hi Don, this is Matt calling. Just want to say thank you so much for giving us all a place to play. Incomparably important that you open up your house in the way that you did, and we could all meet and go deep with each other. It was an incredible gift to us all, and we just here at your do, and all the people who have met in your space, at your house. so many fond and exciting memories, and I'm just very grateful that you provided that space and let us all let our hair down a little bit. So shine on, you crazy diamond.
I thought of Don as somebody who always told what he thought was right. He did what he thought was right for himself. He was he was a free person, and he got to choose his choices and how he would like to bring up Max and how he would like to live his life. Unfortunately, Don didn't have such a healthy diet. Daddy said that he drank lots of alcohol, so that killed him. But he thought it was just a cold. But then they had this court meeting on Monday, but Don didn't come out. So then he rang the ambulance. They broke in and found him lying dead on his bed.
Well, actually, in the last few weeks, while we've been quite a number of us pulling today together, it's been quite a moving experience. In as much as some people that I know very well but hadn't actually seen for quite a long time, people I would have seen regularly in the golden age of 50 Aston Street, all of whom contributed in their own different ways to making that experience what it was down the years. Some of these people I haven't seen for ages that suddenly have become my regular friends again in the course of getting all this together, and that for me is something worth remembering, how actually
that's a gift from Don in a way.
The web of friendship and mutual fascination that he wove in all his years at Aston Street has survived intact these 3.5 years since he moved to a much quieter life, and has succeeded, has survived beyond his death clearly, and we've actually been rediscovering the strength of it lately, and in all the people, some of whom we never expected to see again, who've turned up for the funeral. And if anything, it impels us to remember how good he was at bringing people together, and corny as it is to try a little harder not to let those people fall out of our lives again in the future. And another thing, as I was wandering around East Oxford just in the last couple of days buying some things for today, I kept remembering stories that Don had told me about places and people in East Oxford, people that he knew, people that he was shopkeepers that he was quite intimate with, that he would chat with, the people that I would maybe just say hello to and smile at, that he actually had got to know a bit. When I went into the Cowley Road Butcher's to buy the meat for today, I mentioned to the nice old chap who's the sort of head butcher there that I was buying it for a funeral of a former regular customer of his, and he said, "Oh, who's that then?" And as soon as I said who it was, he knew already, and he was asking me what if I knew any more than what he'd heard about how Don had died, and he was he was obviously someone who was in his own quiet way missing Don as well, and even on the day that we found Don dead, we were wandering around trying to see if anyone had seen him recently, and went into the corner shop at the end of his road, and the guy there immediately remembered him, and it just came home to me really strongly how rooted Don was in his own particular area, to a quite remarkable extent, and that was something that I kind of took for granted while he was alive, and it's only now coming home to me what an important part of him that was. He was really someone who, he didn't just live where he lived, he really dwelt there. I don't know if that's a meaningful distinction anymore, but I hope you understand what I mean by that. And I'll always respect him for that, and I hope it's something that I try to remember myself.
Apart from the fact that Don was was always so welcoming to Isaac and Stanley, which really I found really liberating, because it was so hard to find places to go where I could have fun and stay out late, and also feel that they were happy and wanted and welcomed, and I think that's just the most abiding memory. But I keep thinking about a conversation I had with Don, and I think we were up on the waterbed, and he said to me, he used to say lots of things that used to get my mind thinking, is it true? What does it all mean? But he said to me, in a relationship, you're either a lover or a lovey, and you can't be both. And well, I've thought about that a lot since he said that to me, and I don't think he's right, but he always said things that made me question what I knew and what I thought was right. And anyway, his house was always lots of fun, and he was always really welcoming. And when he always came to my parties, and he was always just a great appreciator of parties, whether they were his or anyone else's. And he was always #1 on my party list.
Don, you were a fucking brilliant, lovely, hilarious crossword lover who enjoyed both approaching it as the most childish sort of a person one could imagine, with a few smatterings of brainishness, you know, and we'd go at it that way, and we'd go at it together in a sort of like almost starting a religion about just one particular guardian or observer crossword. And you could be so completely absorbed in all that people would be robbing you blind of all sorts of shit. You did not. Okay? Are we running out of time? Or should we not talk?
How do I switch off?
You don't. You just don't. Just give us a shout.
Oh,
Attention for just one moment. In about 10 minutes, if anyone wants to.
Okay. Wow. When I first met Don, I ended up at his house on a New Year's Eve, and didn't know, felt very much out of place, like I was intruding a little bit, but I persevered with Don, and I recognised somebody who, although very generous in some ways, was also a bit shy, really, I think. Maybe that was the only way he could find of expressing his love for people, by opening up his house, but it was a wonderful thing. And I had so many lovely memories that I couldn't possibly go into of time there. A particularly fine Magic Mushroom experience where I felt absolutely divine. Great moments in the hot tub, great moments chatting with Don, listening to his bizarre stories. So it's been a roller coaster, and then this funeral has been a roller coaster too, in terms of remembering all those times. Almost like not far enough away enough to be remembered without complex emotions.
My favorite story about Don is the first night I ever went to his house. I was working at the Magic Cafe with Lilia, and she brought me over for a Friday night dinner. This was when it was still green party dinners, and but it was still pretty wild. And I don't know, something happened, and I had to end up wearing his robe for the rest of the night for some reason. I don't know, something happened, but that was the beginning of many wild nights, and quite a few wild nights and he always loved telling the stories of things that happened. Like, he told the same story over and over again, and at first it was kind of annoying, and then I started to really like it and think it was really sweet, because obviously he really liked those stories. They meant something to him. Like the time that I got so drunk that I like projectile vomited in his red room. He loved that story. It was his favorite story. He told it over and over and over again. And those are some of my favorite memories of Don.
Well, it's been a bit of a shock, Don leaving us so soon, when he doesn't seem to have had quite enough fun, but he did have such an awful lot of fun, and we had such a lot of fun with him. I didn't know Don that well at first when I first started going around the 50 Aston Street. I suppose, like a lot of people, I sort of heard from a friend and then turned up and felt a little bit like a gatecrasher or an intruder at first.
Yeah, right.
But but you know, eventually you sort of become part of the scenery, and you start to feel protective of it, and then you feel protective against other newcomers, and that's when you know you're in the scene. And I'm really glad I got to know Don a little bit better than just as the guy that did the house. You know, we've had some great moments at festivals. He was at the Big Green Gathering with us just 2 months ago, and beach moments, and just it's just always entertaining, and it's left a really big gap in Oxford. But a lot of people never saw that house, never had those experiences, so I feel very privileged to have been there and to know him.
Goodbye, Don. Thank you for the light you shone on our lives, a light that was sometimes harsh and uncomfortable, but one that has lasting and continuing impact. You'll be sorely missed.